Hello. Hi. Okay. Today we're going to start by base coating some things. Let's see. Hi everyone. So if you remember, if you were here for the first part, talked about the color palette. There's not a huge plan for overall what the figure, it's not some master plan I had in mind, just a kind of green and orange color palette. So I'm going to start today by just blocking some things in. Give me a rough idea of what I'm looking for. How's everyone doing? Good? Good, I hope. You're still sick. I think I'll do this part. This green also. I'm trying to see where his little scales end. Don't think he has any right here. It's tough to tell. Hi, Meow. Hi, Minimancer. Hello. I'm going to go with there's a scale there. I don't know. Maybe not. We'll paint it in, and if I decide to change it later, that's fine. Yeah, we'll make his shirt green too. Any of this stuff is possible to change later. It's just trying to get a rough feeling for, you know, the overall color palette. You working late tonight, Meow? Secret Santa? No, mine's delivered. Well, it's been shipped. It was the Spira Orc. A new dragon, you say? Who could that possibly be for? Does it rhyme with Daryl Tudyk? All right. I make back. Okay. Now, we've got green. If our orange is our other color, what do we do with the scales, the helmet, right? This could be gold and still stick to our orange. Or we could do the helmet copper and then do these as like silver elements. Kind of like the idea of copper scales. Hello. Venting Horse. Thanks for the follow. Welcome. Yeah, maybe copper. Sure. Well, we know this will probably be leather. This is some kind of canvas or leather. Probably leather, because this is going to be, the bread is going to be more tan. This is like a wood or something. That'll probably be more tan. This is going to be more tan. So we're trying to modulate between orangish red tones. So then silver, right? Then orangish red, and then you can do silver trim, then more tan, green, blah, blah, blah. Back and forth. Okay. So, copper. I'm going to take the cavalry brown. I can darken it with some of the teal. Reuse the colors I've already got, right? It makes this like really dark brownish tone. One of the, if you check out my YouTube, the Spira Orc, I do quite a bit of leather on. So I do a lot on the Nordless Miniatures Viking also. The other cool thing about copper is when we go to do like these belt buckles and stuff, I can use some of that teal as like an oxidization, some verdigris, and reuse that green elsewhere. We're harmonizing. So when you go to do stuff like this, there's a lot of little pockets that can be hard to reach, I recommend flipping the model over when you base coat stuff like this, or else you can get a lot of little spots that are like deep underneath these scales. It can be difficult to reach. I thought the figure was done already. I've only painted it for like 3 hours. I don't know, I'll pick up the pace. We probably won't even, since there's only 2 stream sessions left before Adepticon, probably won't even finish him before Adepticon. He's probably going to take 4 parts. Hi, Sean. I can use the same brown to base coat the leather. I should probably stream next week. If 3 hours stops me from finishing my piece, then so be it. Yeah, easy enough. I'll just paint it in the car. All right, I do have to decide if I want to. He's got these two little, whatever you want to call them. I don't know. Got to decide if I want to do those copper also, or if I want to do those as something else. Maybe they'll be gold instead. His shoulder pads are going to be leather. So I have to decide if I want to do his tunic just plain green, or if I want to think about painting a tartan on it or something, or even just like a simple pattern maybe across the sleeve. I didn't really understand that one either, Minimancer. You think this is a democracy? You get to vote? I'm just thinking out loud. And he's got some more little satchels and things, but all right. I am going to go ahead and just base coat this in the same thing. It's because this is like just a dark brown color, it's easy that if I decide I want to change this, it's not a big deal. So one of the reasons I think it's important to base coat all this stuff, get rid of the white, is it's going to make understanding the values that I have on the figure elsewhere a lot easier to read. If you have all this white on the figure, it kind of messes with your perception of value, right? All right. I think that's fine for right now. Okay. $3G Nelp. Hello. Thanks for following. Welcome to the stream. Okay, so let's start by getting the rough shape of the scales down, the rough volumes. So I'm not thinking about the individual scales yet. I'm thinking about the overall shape of the stomach is kind of spherical. I will consider more about the individual shapes of the scales when I get a rough amount of light across them first. Okay. Something like that. Notice I left these top ones dark. I'm gonna put just a little bit of this on there, but they are gonna be in shadow, so I will have to consider that later. All right, so copper, and I can find a picture. Depending on the lighting, can change a little bit. It can either be more pinkish or a bit more orangish. Let me see. Copy image address. Oh, well, it won't let me paste because for some reason I'm not logged into chat on. It's doing that again on Streamlabs. I don't know why I can log in and stream, but it won't let me chat. But anyways, it's a bit more orangish than so kind of moves to a brown. I think I'm going to go with golden brown. But it can also be kind of pink. So I'm going to grab some golden brown. I'm going to reuse the old rose that we used in the skin. And I'll mix a tone using these three. The old rose is just to lighten this slightly, and then some of the golden brown to shift it a little more orange. Yeah, I don't know. It updated and then now it's being weird. But anyways, if you want to see what copper looks like, just Google copper armor. Or copper pot or whatever. Any kind of, you'll get a pretty good idea of, you know, what tonalities are in copper. But basically, it can shift from more orange to more pink depending on the lighting. And probably some of the, what other, if it's an alloy, some trace amounts of other metals in there. Okay. Then with a bit more of the pink and golden. No, I need something a bit more orange. Grab some of the Dairy-Lide. I have no idea how to actually pronounce that. Dairy-Lide. Okay. So start to build up some more light. So they are individual scales, right? So some of them are going to have like the perfect reflection point. You can see in when it's wet, depending on how I hold the figure, certain scales will light up more than others, right? As it catches the light. So that's what I need to be thinking about, is that basically one of the scales is going to be almost the whole thing is going to be like pure white, depending on how the light is. But like these two could be both quite bright, and then that one's not quite as bright. Okay. Then it kind of shifts skin tony. So grab the sunny skin tone. And I think I want this scale right here to be the really shiny one. Like it's just at the perfect angle to catch the light. Right. So now I've got like the rough idea of the placement of the reflections. Over here, where it's a little more on the side, I can use less of the warm tones. So I can use basically just the red mixed with the pink, and maybe a touch of the yellow to create these reflections here on the side. Yeah. Makes sense. Okay. So now I want to start giving them some shape, right? They need individual shape. I could have them kind of dished one of two ways. I think it would be more interesting if they're like slightly cup shaped. So I'll put a bit more light towards the the left side of each, or the outside edge of each one. Right, they could be domed or dished. If they're dished, the reflection goes to the outside because some light's going to catch that outside edge and bounce back. If they're domed, you're going to get more light in like this, the part closer to you. But no matter what, we're going to get some reflections on the edges. Okay. So I can think about that. Do I like it that way? Would I prefer them to be slightly domed instead? I don't know. So now I'm kind of looking at it going, like, maybe I'd rather them be domed instead of dished, but let's try it and see if I prefer it. All right, so instead of the light being on the outside, get a bit more light on the center of each one. The center slightly towards the viewer. And then you're going to have a bit more dark tone like that. Yeah, I think maybe I like that a little better. And with the domed ones, I can paint a couple more little nice bright highlights. Something like that. And then all of them are going to have edge highlights. A couple of these I want to be a little darker over here. I want this to be like a nice dark position. Maybe it's the reflection of the hammer or something. And then we've got to paint cast shadows on all of them. So each one is slightly curved down, right? The whole torso curves down a little. So the cast shadows, one, you're only going to get cast shadows on ones that are in direct light, right? The main light source. So these lights, these are environmental reflections, right? These are secondary reflections. These won't have cast shadows because they're not from the main light source. These will have cast shadows because this is a reflection of the main light source that is actually the thing casting shadows. So we want to take our neutral shadow tone. Now the ones on the bottom, right, because the whole thing curves like a dome, right? It's got some curvature to it. The ones that are higher up are going to get less cast shadows than the ones that are lower, because the ones that are lower, the light starts to angle down more. You're going to get bigger cast shadows on them. Right. So I'm going to paint this cast shadow like that. Hello. And then these up here would get very small shadows, but they will get the shadow from his beard. So when I will get to that, right? Also think about, like, I'm thinking about the layering, right? Who's that? Monitos. Mata monitos. Buenas noches, gracias. All right. Mata monitos? Is that not what it is? M4T4. I can't read. Oh, kill monkeys. I didn't even think about it. Oh, kill little monkeys. I'm bad with diminutives. I once asked, so the Spanish word for drill is taladro, right? Drill. And I tried to ask Alfonso, I was like, how do you say Dremel? Like a small drill? I was like, can you say taladrito? He's like, no. Thought it sounded insane. I was like, I don't know, man. But I always call a Dremel a taladrito now. All right, so let's look at this. This one's a little big right here. Trying to get them to, you want to try and get them to line up. So it's fine if you have to adjust them or whatever. Yeah, join the Discord. Or don't. You know, do what you want. I'm not the boss of you. So I think some of these are kind of dark at the moment. Pretty happy with the shape of the shadows. They're just a tad dark. Right now, the beard shadow. Overrated. How you doing? So the beard shadow, if I line up right here, you can see where the beard is drawn. So I know it just crosses over, basically creates a line across the bottom of all of these scales. So I'm going to have a shadow that runs like this. Paint. Line it up. And then his little ponytail thing, I guess, comes and casts another one like this. See, you can line it up with the two. And then it comes partially, so like here. Cast shadows are, the color of your cast shadow is determined by the amount of ambient light in the scene. The more ambient light, the lighter your cast shadows. If you were like in a cave, for example, their cast shadows might be completely black. If you were outside, they'd be lighter because, you know, sunlight creates pretty heavy ambient light. Pretty strong ambient light, I should say. So there's not really a correct answer to that. It's all determined by the scene. Okay, so there you go. The shadow lines up. Rip. I think the one I think stylistically, since I don't have to match it perfect because I can do what I want, I think this one is a little too big. I'm just gonna shrink it a little bit. Like so. Okay, now this would be much easier to do it like this. I have to give all of these scales an edge highlight. Right? Especially these ones on the outside. So these ones over here, they're going to catch light, a lot of light, because they're facing the same direction as this like main point light, right? Okay, I'm going to use a bit of this, the pink, just like I did on the other side. I don't want to create a edge highlight on these ones in cast shadow that are as strong, but I do want just a touch of edge lining on them just to give them some shape. Hello. Who's that? Browntown Games. Hello. Welcome. I need to make sure that the shadow area coverage is nice and even. Good morning. What are you in Australia there? Okay. Another little touch I'm going to do real quick. I'm going to go on some of these. I'm going to go and create a little lip around the bottom of these. Not like crazy, just like maybe it like domes out and then it's got a kind of like a coin edge, right? So the edge is slightly rolled. Adios. All right, is it looking properly coppery yet? We can go one brighter. So still have some work to do on this side and some of these smaller ones under here that just need some edge highlights and stuff. But yeah, I mean, that gives you an idea on how to copper. All right. Actually, you know what? Before I take a quick break, I'm gonna glaze just a bit of this yellow on top, just to knock up the color saturation a bit in a few spots, make it a little more yellow, and then I'm gonna put one more little highlight over top of that. This is just to warm it up a little bit. I want that main light to feel quite warm. Oh. Okay. I will be back in a few minutes. Let's see. What do we do now? Well, we could keep up with the copper. I mean, I could finish the scales, or I can work on the helmet a little. I'll work on the helmet a little, just to get a feeling. So, right, this is a sphere. So basically, the main highlight is going to go here. Like that. Then we'll get some reflections of what's behind. They're going to be slightly colder. I'm actually going to use some of the green, right? This will help desaturate and pull some of the color I've used before. Right. See how the green grays out the red? Why, chat? Why does it do that? Why does using the samurai green gray out the cavalry brown? And why would I want it to? Exactly. Complementary colors. And by using the colors that I'm using elsewhere on the model, such as his shirt, I create what? No. No. In fact, it's no. By mixing complementary colors, by reusing colors that I've used elsewhere in mixes elsewhere on the model. Yeah, there you go. Harmony. Color harmony. Very good, Dan. Gold star. Hi, White Owl. Welcome. Thanks for following. Okay, so main reflection, right? This is the big main. These little secondary ones, I'm going to adjust the sizes and things of these, but these little extra ones that I can create kind of weird shapes and things, they can just be like environmental noise, whatever. They're not going to be as bright as the main reflection, but they can help create some extra visual interest. So I'm going to be pretty rough with sketching these. I want to vary the size and shape. This hammer, the helmet hammer, that's the hammer. This is the helmet. The helmet is not like machined, right? It's made by hand. So if I make like perfectly geometric shapes like you'd see on Captain America's shield or something, where you get that starburst pattern, which has a name, by the way. The helmet's going to look machine made and not man made, right? So I don't know, maybe there's clouds or something. Ace lol, hello. Thanks for following. Welcome. But the main shape is a sphere, so I think I want the main highlight to be pretty large. We can make this decently polished, right? So large shiny spot. Then kind of feather it out. Start to blend these two areas together. Maybe there's another highlight here that kind of connects and comes off. As I smooth this, right, as I start to blend, those shapes will become more subtle. I can even grab some of this gold brown. Create another little tonal variation that's slightly more yellowish. I think it's wood. It looks like wood to me. Maybe it has like metal caps on the end of it. I don't know. Right, so really brighten up that main light. It may take a few layers for me to get to like the top brightness, but shiny. Okay, so let's grab some of the brown. Now I can start to, it's not like a glaze, but it's a little thicker than a glaze, but as it's watery, right? It's thinned down pretty well. As I start to just create more and more small transitions in between, softening some of these shapes that I've sketched out, it'll begin to layer over top of each other and create more and more little nuances in the metallic. I can even grab some of the pink and use some of that. Kind of watered down. So make another little color variation. Cool. This is making sense. Is it clear what I'm doing, or I'm just finding intermediate tones, just softening the edges, slowly building up a smooth surface? Until it looks shiny. So I'm pretty happy with that. If I zoom out a bit, you can see that it's pretty appropriately metallic. I'm looking at it, and I think I'd like a little bit of a reflection here. Copper doesn't tend to have like a ton of like super dark. It doesn't look like quite often as black as some other metallic steel, like steel. So I can tone back the like really, really dark tones a touch. So if you were thinking about like where the horns would go, you could maybe, the problem with reflecting horns, like you could consider this maybe a reflection of the horn over here. If you wanted to reflect like the top horns, the problem with that is that as soon as there would be a reflection here, right? If you were looking at it straight on, there would be a reflection that kind of comes off like this, and then sort of comes around back and down like this, and maybe there's like a little here. So you could put like a little reflection, like, I don't know, something over there. The issue comes is as soon as you rotate it, that reflection doesn't make sense anymore. So the better thing to do might just be to make it a little less mirrored, a little more just noisy, and then you can maybe make like the impression of the horn reflection, but don't like try and paint an exact reflection of the horn because it's not going to make any sense. So like Kirill does, you know, he's done some of those nights where he reflects like things that are off camera, you know, if you out of scene. Those work fine because you don't know the positioning of, like, let's say I did a reflection of a tree. When I turn it, the tree could have been, if I place the reflection right here, right? If I put a reflection of a tree right here, maybe that tree is like, let me zoom out. So maybe, all right, so I'm here, right? I put a reflection here of the tree. Well, maybe that tree's over here, right? But if I put a reflection here of a tree, from here it would be like behind him like this, reflecting, right? It would be like back here. But if I place this reflection here, as soon as I turn him like this, well, now this reflection, if this was a tree, it no longer makes sense that it's behind him. It would be like directly to the side. So that's why things that are like out of the scene can make sense in like a mirror reflection, but things that are literally like right next to him are more difficult to fake because you have a positional relationship of where that is. Like if I were to try and reflect the bird, it would, and I put him like right here. Well, if I looked at it from this way, it wouldn't make any sense that it's like way up there. unless it's an extreme proximity, then some of those things start to work. You can put like reflections of things that are literally like right on top. Like if he had his hand up next to his head like this, then you could paint his hand, the reflection of his hand, and because it's so close, it would work from more angles. Like here, I could do an impression of like the lights coming and hitting what's going to be a silver element, and I could place like a really subtle kind of reflection right here to be like, okay, well, there's enough light that you kind of pick up that and it still sort of works from these other angles. I hope that made sense to everyone. And I'm not just talking crazy. But basically, yeah, reflect things all you want that you have no spatial context of like where it is. Otherwise, stick to things. Stick to a more noisy metallic, right? The impression of things that are reflecting, but not quite clear enough to see what exactly it is. I'm going to take this, and because this is bothering me, I'm just going to paint a dark line around it. It just helps clean it up, makes it, gives me a nice line to see better what I've done, right? What I'm working with also kind of darkens that sun reflection. This one might take a few layers to get that to the brightness I really want. So, and slowly just build this up until I get it as shiny as I want. Maximum highlight. Yeah, just darkening that thing in makes it look more finished. The same for if I did the around the horns right now, but I just want to get this area. All right, so I just keep building this up until I'm happy with it. Just do this as much as you need until it gets, I mean, I could stop right here, right? And be like, it's a bit sketchy and messy, but the more I layer this over top of each other, eventually the more finished it's going to look. I like to create a little false edge here, like around the, where it turns into the, what will eventually be the silver metallic. It helps just like define those two, creates a nice little shape. Now, eventually I can also go back and I could add scratches and other little things. So we get the impression first, then just refine and refine and refine until you're happy with the level of refinement. Wherever that is up to you. Here I create, I don't know, some kind of shape like this. Who knows what it is? Doesn't really matter. Just to be interesting. Metallics are weird and random and noisy. So it might look odd like that, but then you turn it like that and you're like, oh, okay, well, just some kind of weird reflection. Maybe this one instead comes down here. Right, we got this thing here is reflecting. Maybe it comes like this and then comes up and back down again. How do you prevent paint abrasion when holding the figure in hand? I'm actually really mostly holding it from the thing with these two fingers. This is just like resting against my hand. I'm not really like gripping the figure. It's just resting against my hand for a little extra support. I'm a monster, though. People have called me crazy for how I will just like handle the model with my bare hands. But yeah, most of the I'm really holding, like, see, if I go like that, I'm not even touching the figure, then I'm just letting it rest against my hand. It actually makes it so I don't have to grip it quite as tight. If I hold it like that, I feel like I have to grip it tighter so that the figure doesn't move around as much, because leverage. So just going like that can just sit in my hand a little easier. So now I decide I don't really like this one, so I'm going to go like this, and I'm going to kind of get rid of it. I like this part of it, but maybe I want it to actually, I don't know, maybe I want it to connect to this one up here. Maybe I want it to go like this. Go like this instead. don't overthink these little weird micro reflections, is what I would call them, like these little micro gradients. They're just noise. Like if I tried to reproduce these, it's not going to happen. I would draw them completely different the next time I tried to paint them, right? All right, so now it's starting to get, right, a bit smoother. I'm looking at this one over here, kind of bugging me. It's a little too contrasted in spots. Bring, bring, bring. Ben Joe. Hello, welcome. Welcome to the stream. How are you? Just keep building and eventually you just have to tell yourself like, yep, that's good enough. There you go. No problem. I upload them to YouTube, so if you ever want to go back and watch the process, you can see it on there. Hi, Doug. All right, is there anywhere that looks particularly rough at the moment? I would say right here is not quite as soft as I would like. Now I'm going to take just a little of this, a little bit of the two, right? I'm going to glaze this. Get some of that really nice warm orange yellow in there. Just around this main reflection area. It's really easy for this to turn pink because all the red and light skin tone we're using. So just to get a bit of that color back. And I'm going to use, while I'm looking at the helmet, I'm going to grab and glaze just a little bit of this on some of these scales also. Just like that. Just to get them to match. Cool. Copper helmet. Now I gotta soften these, and obviously I gotta do the back of the helmet. Basically I'll paint the back of the helmet like I did the front, and then just make these two, this transition point, blend in with each other. Looking at the sculpt, I'm trying to see if there's really any scratches and stuff. Not really that I can see. I could obviously invent some. Would also consider maybe making another lighter reflection up here somewhere. Maybe there's one more. I don't want it to be like super dark. The transition doesn't really make sense to have like an extreme dark in the back there, because I mean, above, right? This is going to be reflecting whatever's up. So in most cases, the sky, like, unless, you know, unless he's in a cave or whatever, but cool. Dwarf man, copper. So I want you to peek something real quick. This might look a little far forward from this side, this sort of reflection here. But when you turn the figure like this, right? See how even that just barely takes up the full side of his head. So it turns really thin, right? So this reflection needs to be pretty large if I want it to look like a thin reflection from the side, or from the front, I mean. Okay. Time for another quick break. Any questions about this before I go on the break? Before I go and enjoy giving myself some of the C word? I don't know if that's a trigger word on Twitch. What painting brand do I use? Like, what paints am I using? I use a mix of Vallejo and Chimera colors. Mostly. And I promise that if you use the same paints, you'll paint just like me. I do not make that guarantee. Okay, what can we work on? I think I'll clean up some. Still haven't decided what I want to do. These will probably end up being gold now, just to bring some of the yellow back in, right? It's got some of the yellow, like a nice warm gold. Yeah, you can always ask a question. What's up? Let's work on the scales a little more. What you got for me? Well, this was all done with the brush, so. Only thing the airbrush has been used on this figure was just to prime him. I do occasionally. Now, that's not me saying I never use an airbrush to blend, right? Because occasionally I do. But if you're asking specifically on this figure, no, I have not really used the airbrush much. if I'm going to use the airbrush to, either way. Yeah, blending is typically done, yeah. You could do it with the airbrush in real thin layers, or you could do it with the brush in thinner layers. So when I'm sketching, I'm using nice thick layers. And then if I'm blending, I tend to use thinner layers of paint. Like here was I'm doing edge highlights. I want a thicker paint consistency because I want it to be nice and opaque, right? But when I go to do more subtle transitions, that's when I switch to using thinner layers. Sure. Yeah, yes, it does require patience, but you get faster at it. I've been painting 3 hours tonight. The whole figure, I think I've been painting for a total of 6, so. With practice comes speed. Hello. You are the only person in the world to not buy this one. Okay. Closer. Now let's grab some of the pink and some of the green, mix them together. What do we get? We get a nice gray tone. We can use for these outside edge highlights that are much more desaturated. The beard is finished. The beard is finished. I wouldn't blend the beard because I want the brush strokes for that hair texture, right? I don't want it super smooth. Look at my beard, right? This ain't smooth. You can see all the little hairs and everything. The world is not made of plastic. There are things that should be smooth and there are things that should not. Hair, in my opinion, should not be smooth. You got to be careful when even that's like a medium gray. See how dark surroundings are. It's too much right now. So I got to tone that back. Double check how I feel about the scales, and I feel okay. I think a couple of them could be a bit brighter on the side. I'm going to lighten them a little bit. And like this one, I think is too dark. That feels better to me. Cool. Cool. Okay, let's add a little light here on his shirt. So the back scales, right? These ones back here are a little brighter because they're maybe reflecting his shirt that has light on it. And then this center section's maybe reflecting his hammer or something. So it just helps create this kind of silhouette, just like we did on the helmet, right? It's not really lighter. I mean, yes, it's lighter in value, but it's not bright like this. It's a secondary light that's just a touch lighter than this darkest area. And actually, well, you can reevaluate this stuff a lot and come in and like make small fine adjustments. I really just want that back row to be a bit brighter. Just to silhouette the shape. Like, look. So if I hold up a can, right? So you can't see this side of the can, right? But if I put my hand here, see, now you can see my hand is behind the can and you can see that line show up. But if I go away, it disappears because all it's reflecting is the black bookcase underneath. But I go like this, and now you've got a line on the side of the can. That little line helps silhouette the shape. What it is that's reflecting, not super important. Doesn't really matter. Just that it's there, right? Observation. Hello, Drew Wand, Drew and 111. Or is it Dre Wand? I don't know. But hello, thanks for following. Okay. I don't really think his shirt is worth doing a tartan on. If I was going to do a tartan, maybe I'd do it on this. I just don't think there's enough space to really like be worth it. So I'm just going to also it's really towards the bottom. It's not a big point. I don't particularly want it to draw a lot of interest anyways. So for me, that's kind of enough, right? Just give it the shape, give it a little bit of light to give the roundness. Don't need to over highlight this fabric. It's fine to leave it like just the green. If I wanted, I could, if I'm like, oh, it needs just a touch of something, I could grab some of this flesh that I used, and I could see if I over highlight it, right? That looks like too much. It's too bright. Doesn't make any sense. Don't need it that bright. So I knock it back down. And that feels better to me. Cool. All right. What a little. This really probably doesn't even matter. I was getting ready to paint something that I don't even think you can see because this has got to go on him, right? Blue? Dave, you really are bad at colors. Okay, well, so if I'm smoothing, I do lose texture because that's the intention of smoothing. If I want to paint texture, then I paint texture. What? This is green. That's green. I mean, it's teal. Like, does this look blue in the camera? Yeah, on screen? Okay, well, hold on. What does this look like? Because this is blue. And this? This looks blue. All right. I'm legitimate. I'm not trying to give anyone a hard time here. I'm legitimately asking because if the color representation is wrong and everyone's like, this is blue, then that means that the colors are off on the camera and I want to fix it. But if this looks blue, okay, what about this? I mean, these are kind of similar. This feels more blue, right? And this is more green. Okay. All right. Just double checking. I was like, because on my screen it looks fine. I'm not trying to pick on you, Dave. I'm just trying to make sure that the color settings are right. And then when everyone started to be like, it's blue, I'm like, what? Are my colors off? Palette cam might be slightly on. All right. Now I'm off. What was I doing? Yep, that was it. I was painting blue. I notice more green when you add the sunny. Well, that's, yeah, I mean, that is more green because this has yellow. green. Okay, let's talk about green for a second. Let's talk about the color green. Okay. And color relativity. This is blue. Okay. This is as blue is gonna get, right? It is straight up blue. The second you start to move away from this, or let's say this, right? These are blue. As soon as you start moving away from this, you start shifting into greens, okay? If I hold this up by itself, you might say that this is a blue. Well, you're right, it has blue in it, but green has blue in it, but it also is slightly greenish, okay? Now we'll move a little further. This color earlier that you guys said was blue, this Caribbean blue is what it's called. Now suddenly in comparison, this looks green, right? Color relationships. This doesn't look blue anymore because it's way more green than this is. All right. Samurai green, right? Pretty close in tonality to this. Now if I take jade green, right? Now we're getting even closer. But then if I pull this in, you might call this green. This has a ton of yellow in it. This is way heavier on the yellow than it is on the green. So this is not even like a neutral green, okay? A neutral green grab something that would be considered like a neutral green. There's just like a good green. These are all inks. It's hard to see because they're dark. Why are they all so dark? Should have just gone with the what's called in the first place. Okay, neutral green, right? You can see that this is more yellow than this. This is a neutral green. Phthalo green from Chimera is a normal green. That is just a middle of the road green. I think what a lot of people think of as green is actually like a yellow green, okay? The point is, it doesn't really matter what you call a color. The color is relative, right? Suddenly that this one before, when these were gone, looked more green, doesn't look so green anymore when you've got colors like this in the mix now, right? Like this has a ton of yellow in it. Even this could be considered a green. All of these you could call green. But it's all about color relationship, right? This doesn't, you're like, oh no, that's yellow. Well, it's not so yellow anymore when I put it next to that. Now it looks green. Does this make sense? It's about color tendency. Hydrax, how do you darken purples? You use a pure pigment violet. You use something like hexed lichen or chimera violet that's like basically black when you paint it straight over. Like if I hold up, the problem is like when you buy a violet, like when you buy something like this, which the new hex lichen is different. The old hex lichen, you painted over top of black and it like wouldn't even show up. Anyways, so like this has white in it, right? So what happens is it desaturates when you add black, because you're mixing white. They put white pigment in this to give it coverage. So when you add black to it, it desaturates by black and white mixing together to make gray. If you want a really dark violet, you just use this, right? Look how dark this looks in the bottom. Okay. See the cap right here? Like basically looks black. If I put it on the palette, it looks black. But as I begin to thin it out and add white, because it's now becoming translucent and you're seeing the white of the paper through the pigment, right? It becomes violet. Any other questions? Any more questions? Yes, no? No, yes? Like, look, here. I'll do this real quick just so you can see. Right? The back of the helmet is pretty dark. You can't even tell that's violet. It just turns black. Hola, Ivan. So if I want a specific feel, I start with one main color and relate all others to it. Or do I use the palette and adjust each color with each other? So the question is ambience, right? If I were to paint it depends on your light and your scene. Things in the jungle, right? If you're in the jungle, everything is going to tend towards green because it's going to, all the light all the ambient light, not direct light. All the ambient light is going to be bouncing off of leaves and plants and everything, and those leaves are going to filter out the colors and only reflect green back, so everything is going to have a green tint to it. Basically, you don't need to think of colors in terms of names as much. Think about them in terms of feeling. Oh, I missed some people because I was going on a rant. Valifera, Nahi, and GXD, thanks for following. Welcome. You guys caught me in a rant. You want to talk more about color? What are the primary colors? Oh. RGB, red, blue, and green. Red, blue, yellow, or cyan, magenta, yellow. So red, blue, and green is correct in terms of how light works, how like pixels on your monitor. Red, blue, and yellow would be how school has taught, primary school has taught you what the primary colors are, right? Heck, even our schools taught this for a long time. Problem is that's a bunch of bullying. What does primary color mean? Right? What does primary mean? That would be, yes, that would be the general accepted definition. That you can't mix primary colors. Okay. So you guys said red is a primary color, right? Red's a primary? Yeah. Hold on. Okay. I already got some on the palette, never mind. Okay. That's not red. That's magenta, right? And this is yellow. Sure looks like red to me. So if red has yellow in it, right? Let's grab some blue. Let's grab some red. Oh, not that one. Red plus blue is what? Red and blue is purple. And why does this look like crap? Compared to this one. No. No, if I mix some yellow into this one, right? Now they look a lot more alike. The problem with mixing, what you've accepted that mixing red and blue makes purple, the problem is that red has yellow in it, and yellow is the complementary color of purple, so you get this desaturated purple, right? If I take magenta, which has no red, which has no yellow, That's violet. Purple, whatever. See the difference? Depends on what you're calling yellow. Are you calling this the complementary to violet? Or are you calling this the complementary to violet? Again, color names. We're trying to describe an entire spectrum with like 7 names. So when is it exactly yellow? I'm gonna need the Pantone swatch for true yellow. It was more to prove magenta is a primary. Now the problem is the real thing, magenta can be considered a primary, right? The problem is you could also consider blue a primary because cyan, right? What is cyan? This is kind of cyan. I'd say this is pretty dang close to cyan, right? Problem is it's not a true cyan pigment, right? So if I take this and I mix it with magenta, okay, I should get a blue. And I might be able to get close, right? It feels like blue. I'm getting close. But if I put it next to this one, maybe it needs a little more, right? Tonality-wise, it feels pretty similar, but this one's a bit more desaturated than that one. magenta, blue, yellow, like cyan, red. My point is that, like, don't worry so much about it. You aren't trying to mix your own paints, right? You're not trying to develop your own paint range. You don't need the science of like how exactly pigments react and everything. Like, it's, my point is, it's not important. Just mix colors. Learn how colors mix together. Use what works for you. You don't have to be like stringent on, I only mix from primaries. Pigments are not perfect. They can't replicate every single color exactly. You know, single pigment, like primary pigments can't mix every single color exactly. There's a reason they make umber and all these other pigments, right? And then there's the problem of you're going to end up taking a picture of your figure anyways, and you're going to screw up the white balance or whatever, and it's never going to look like it does in hand. It's never going to be a perfect representation of how it looks, and it's going to change slightly in Photoshop when you change it under save it under a different color profile. I feel like there's some weird badge of honor in mini painting going around now that it's like, artsy to paint with an extremely limited palette, like the Zorn palette or whatever. The Zorn palette can help you control the amount of colors you're using and create color harmony, but it also limits you. You can't mix every single color using the Zorn palette. It is not useful for everything. It's a useful exercise, but it shouldn't be treated like, you know, some kind of magic. Or some kind of badge of honor. I was having a conversation with a student who was trying to mix everything from just the Chimera base set. Everything. Yeah, we're not doing that, Drex. Sorry. He was trying to mix everything on his figure from just the Chimera base set. And I was like, why? Why not use pre-mixtures? If there's a color you like from a bottle, use it. No one is going to care when you show your figure that you painted it with only 6 colors. I mixed all the yellows, all the greens myself from blue and yellow. No one cares. They care what your figure looks like, not what paints you used. You don't have to paint on hard mode. Yeah, great, lady. You paint only with a palette knife. And? Did it make your painting look any better? I was going around in miniature painting for a while. I don't use an airbrush ever. All of my blending is done with a brush. It's like so. If you can't tell the difference, only the final result really matters. I mean, you shouldn't trash talk. It's one thing to critique. Greenskins Gaming, hello. Did you go full Oingo Blagovian? See if anybody gets that reference. It's from an episode of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia where Frank Reynolds pretends to be an art critic. All right, I think I'm going to stop there for tonight. Cool.